Hi, my name is Rosalia Neto Soto. I'm Fatima Betis Guerrero.
I am Max Hernandez.
And I'm Lizeth Marino.
And I am Arturo Velasco.
We are going to talk about Soviet Union fallout. Years: December 31, 1931 to January 1999. Countries involved: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Lithuania, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan. The important is the reason for Chinese states of the primary socialist power and enemy of the West in the fallout. Universe is not a canonical state, but a connection can be assumed to the Soviet split and subsequent improvement of Soviet-Western relations that later at which it's necessary to explain the survival the URSS and Warsaw Pact and territory maintain the Cold War culture and feel central to the Fallout world.
Of 1990, we will find again that the request by the Baltic countries to leave the USSR, although they will not be heard, and in addition, the revolts were stifled with great violence. During the following months, we will find great changes within this. In addition, there will be many demonstrations in which the government will act with an iron hand to avoid general lack of control. An important step will be found in June 1991 when for the first time the Russians were able to vote for the president of the country, being elected Boris Yeltsin. Also, for the moment, we will not find the liberations of the new countries of the Union. And this way, Lithuania and Latvia were again killed in demonstrations at the hands of the Soviet army on July 31. The United States and the USSR signed a treaty to reduce nuclear weapons. That is a very important element in international negotiations. 9. As the Cold War began to thaw across Eastern Europe, the spokesman for the Berlin Communist Party announced a change in his city's relations with the West. Starting at midnight, he said citizens of the GDR were free to cross the country's borders. East and West Berliners flocked to the wall, drinking beer and champagne and chanting "Tour off, open the gate." At the midnight, they flooded through the checkpoints. More than 2 million people from the East Berlin visited West Berlin that weekend to participate in a celebration that was one of the journalists wrote the greatest street party in the history of the world. People used hammers and picks to knock away chunks of the wall. They become known as the Marschupit or wall wood pickers, while cranes and bulldozers pulled down section after section. Soon the wall was gone and the Berlin was united for the first time since 1945. Only today, one Berlin spray painted on a piece of the wall is the war really over.
There was several detonations by which the USSR disintegrated. For example, the two reforms that was Perestroika and Glasnost, failure of the Perestroika, ethnic and nationalist conflicts, rising prices and product shortages, weakening of the communist, fall of the Berlin Wall, and a power dispute between the central government of the USSR and the Soviet Republic of Russia.
During the last part of the 1980s, certain economic problems in the USSR worsened in a relatively short time. The economy of the Soviet Union underwent drastic changes. In order to set aside the stagnation of the Soviet economy, the Soviet leader Gorbachev began a process of political openness and economic restructuring in what had been an unipartisan state. The 1989 revolutions faced the fall of the socialist states allied to the Soviet Union, the so-called Eastern Bloc, and increased pressure on Gorbachev to implement a greater democracy and autonomy for the constituent republics of the USSR. Under Gorbachev's leadership, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union presented direct elections, formed a new central legislature, and ended the ban on political parties. The legislators of Soviet republics began enacting laws that diminished control of the central government and ratified their sovereignty. On March 15, 1990, Gorbachev is elected president of the USSR in the Third Congress of People Deputies of the Soviet Union. On July 11, 1990, Boris Yeltsin announced his discharge from PCUS. In the presidential election of June 1991, Boris Yeltsin, presenting himself as independent, would be elected president of RSFS of Russia. On December 8, 1991, the presidents of Soviet republics of RSFS of Russia, RSS of Ukraine, and RSS of Belarus met in secret, signing the Treaty of Belabesa, by which the Soviet Union was dissolved and replaced by a form of union volunteer known as the Commonwealth of Independent States.
Ending in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed and marked the end of an era. In a matter of months, the former superpower dissolved without anyone knowing how to face it. The Secretary General of the Communist Party, Mikhail Gorbachev, and tried to reform the regime since 1985, launching the political change that ended the old world. The war-line resistance of the party broke out in August 1991 when a group of co-pluralists tries to overthrow Gorbachev and take power to prevent the breakdown of the country.
The disappearance of this great world hegemonic bloc has already left open many of the problems that we still face today. Among them, religious, ideological, and political problems that were not settled after the disappearance of the Soviet world. One of the most striking aspects in the population of these countries didn't stop being Soviet overnight. That brought with it that much of the communist social elite of the USSR, or Soviet Union, continued to be once it disappeared, adapting to the new socio-political international landscape. Being politically independent for many decades had a negative effect on the republics of Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Many of them plunged into processes of political instability or warlike conflicts. These conflicts were due to the formation of a national identity based on apparently uniform ideological, religious, ethnic, or economic precepts. It opened the door to the forced creation of administrative political institutions that sought international legitimacy.
So, in conclusion, we can say that the fall of the USSR caused several problems in the rest of the world that we continue to face today, such as religion, different way of thinking, and government, etc. Thanks to the disintegration of the USSR, there were several changes in the rest of the world. The US as a global power at the economic, political, and military levels, capitalism, interventions between the East to ensure international peace and security. Russia continued to have enough military potential to threaten any country in the world. Europe and America thought the problems with the Soviets will be over, and we continue to face some political, ideological, and religious problems since the fall of the USSR.